Hello, everybody.
And we're
Splat
live.
Chat episode 4. Oh, there we go. Now we're live. We're gonna slide right into it. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Splat Chat episode 4, fourth episode of Splat Chat edition. I am still Kyon, who is currently burning up from the weather that's happening outside. Vern apparently is also with me with the lighting that's being shown. We also got Nito, who's back again with us, and our local area cup correspondent, who's actually with us in PNG tuber form, Pink Puffy Pastry. First of all, everybody, how's everybody doing? All at
This is
once.
awesome. This is a great day. Huge day for huge week, honestly, for Splatoon the last couple of weeks. And we have so much content to break down.
Is this square big enough? I think
Vern, how are
so.
you doing?
I'm very good, thank you.
I'm glad everybody's doing well. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. Of course, we got Pink Puffy Pastry with us from Area Cupland because that is one of the events that has happened in this past week. I will be able to speak English, I swear. With Area Cup in mind, Area Cup number 36 that has just happened this past week. I'll be honest. The thing that stuck out to me were a couple teams from the West that were participating too. There's also a bunch of weapons that also had a lot of airtime. I think we even have a statistic. I think we even had graphics for that. We gotta dig in. Go for it.
There is. Oh, okay. So there's two big things, at least when it comes to weapons. But first, yeah, I do want to talk about two of some Western top players. There's the tippy top players in a pickup called Tung Tung, like the brain rot Tung Tung, unfortunately, but also Vanguard, which is really cool, like a top EU group, and then Tung Tung, which had Gray, arguably the best European player in the world, so many in the zone major wins, has won major tournaments on every single role, which is like such a rare thing to do. Has Jared, who is the Splatoon World Championship, peaks rank 1 in tower control for the Japan region, and also has a ton of major wins. Jordan, who peaked 5,600 XP in the 10 attack division, but like that's absolutely insane. That's a crazy number. It's almost unbelievable. And also run the most recent Sanduki major. And then Yu Liter, who's won multiple in the zones and 5 baskets, which are really high level, top level events, and it's just one of the best snipers to ever do it. So they played an area cup and it was absolutely insane.
That's super crazy. Yeah. Just seeing this area cup, just seeing area cup that get played here as well. I think what's more crazy is that Vanguard and the very aptly named Tung Tung being teams to participate, because I feel like, if I'm not mistaken, there are a handful of Western teams, Pastry, that also participate in area cup occasionally.
Yes, at times. It's on the rare end. Like, for example, a few air cups back, it was Kyo, Gray, I believe Bursty, and one more. It was like a mix of like the FT Wood roster as well as Gray. They played in a couple area cups back, and they didn't really like do like crazy good or anything like that, but it's cool to see. But usually it's more one off. It would be super cool though if more and more top level, high level Western teams start to show up in area cup, because like they love it too. They really love it. The Japanese CEOs.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I'm glad to see a lot of different teams participate, no matter which region they're playing in, as well here in Area Cup. But I feel like the most important thing that we gotta talk about with Area Cup too. So we know that the patch that dropped like the 30 or so weapons happened last week. I think we got a graphic that is readily available here that pretty much shows us, if I'm not mistaken, Pastry, also the top 16. Is it like the top 16 weapons are the most commonly played compositions? If I'm not mistaken.
It's kind of like that. There are swaps. Like each team has swapped a couple weapons, or for example, right, with the C2 team here, Yokai Gatsurike. Lobster did play one game in the finals of the Nuclear Rapid Pro, and the pen player swapped off the Zap. So there was a game where they ran double cooler, but this is kind of like, what's the main comp that they use? It's like that kind of thing. But there is quite a few new weapons, which I really do like.
I just love looking at graphics like this, because it's always a surprise. It's always a little like one of those, like, I don't want to say an optical illusion, but it's like one of those Where's Waldo graphics, because then out of nowhere you spot like quad dapples and you're like, oh, okay, yeah. Okay.
Oh my god, that group is a blast. There was a bit of lore with that group. The captain of the group, Spadita, is actually an extremely young player, like around 13 years old. But basically, they got a bunch of top high level dabbles that do well in some solo ladder, got them together, and it's like let's play Area Cup. And hilariously enough, yes, even with four dapples, they beat Norishio's group, which Norishio is one of the best players that ever touched the game, and losing to Quad Dapple, which is like, wow, goes to show how good they are, you know?
This is a team that finished top 8 because I think we're looking at the same quad dapple team, which was Raccoon, if I'm not mistaken. What, 3 blue dapples and a red dapple being shown?
Yeah.
Is this like a bunch of one tricks here for dapples?
Yeah. Like Spadita, for example, that's the player, and then they have Kaban, Medu, and Kura. Unfortunately, none of their POVs were streamed, but if you do want to check out like Norishio's POV, for example, you can see the Dapples go a little crazy on the six. It's very humorous.
Yeah, that's absolutely nuts. I do want to take a look at some of the more. I'm reading this one, the most frequently used weapons that we've seen here. And if you were here last week for Splat Chat episode 3, we had to figure out the weapons that had a lot of airtime here out of Area Cup for sure. And I know, yeah, the third kits mini showed up. The pro, even making it the pro and Dread actually from Hug out of top 4 showed up. We also had has been going crazy about the Rapid Blaster Pro and
Mhm.
making its way into the picture. I think that's the 96 third kit as well from Snap making its way. So we kind of see like a whole variety of them. But if I look very closely, Minis, Stampers, Pros, and that Rapid Blaster Pro has really been feels like it's been the weapons I've seen out of the third kits here out of Area Cup.
Yeah, and the biggest of the bunch. Surprisingly, this is a gun that day one, day two impressions flew under the radar, but absolutely when the stuff hits the fan, it showed up, and that was the new mini. It has 190p Zuka and Beacon. At the
What?
time, we were like, yeah, like at the time we were like, Zuka's definitely good, but Beacon not too crazy of a sub right now. We had no idea. You can go into a game with no charge up. I've done this like 3 times on my stream. You can go into a game, just build a Zuka, and you can build it in like 7 seconds. It is unreal how fast you can build, especially with this weapon, and it's such a good painter too. And on top of that, the idea of a support with Beacon is really unique right now. Beacon with Cooler is such a good combination that people were running VDAPL sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, just to have that combination of Beacon plus Cooler. Because if you can have that and you're on a walkout, your mid lines can run forward and just take all the fights they want. It's so OP.
Now, Nito and Fur, not sure if you guys have seen any mini Splatlanes in your time. Does this surprise you at all?
So,
I'll be
I mean,
honest.
yeah, Neo, you can go.
Look, I'll be honest. I've been playing competitive Splatoon for a long while, and seeing a mini, it's not exactly what you'd call a rarity. It's something that you'd see every once in a while as a niche pick, to where it's respected enough to where if someone brings it out, you're gonna say they definitely have some experience with this weapon, trust in it. It's not something like Aerospray where it's just a complete toss up. Nowadays, I mean, I'm seeing a lot of these top level players. I see Zenith at one point talk about this being a game changer for the minis. So I think while I talked about how much like you saw it not too often, but as a niche pick, you're gonna see it a lot more now, especially what y'all talked about. The fact that it can produce like I'm not gonna exaggerate when I'm saying this, but I still feel like I am. Maybe like a good amount of Zukas per game. I'd say like somewhere around 10. That is crazy. A weapon with none 90p Zuka is gonna be crazy. And I don't know what's gonna happen next. I know it got nerfed a few updates back, but I mean it's still as scary as ever. Let's be honest.
Mhm.
Especially with this comp, with this kit.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes, so
prior
insane.
prior to Dread and Big Swig being added, I mean, Mini was one of probably the 2 best painting weapons in the game. and it still is one of the best painting weapons in the game. It in Splatoon 2 it had missiles and it farmed. Like it wasn't common like K-Shot was I think normally better, but like I mean Bagel was a big a mini player back in the day. Like it paints a ton. They give it a support sub. They give it a special you can farm really quickly. Mini fights relatively well. Like you can go. I'm glazing, but you can go watch a Bagel clip if you want to know that. Um, but it fights. It paints better than like 95% of the weapons in the game. Uh, they gave it to go. Like that's kind of what it's about at this point.
Hey, so do we now the 1 week review coming in from Area Cup is I'm sure that mini is is probably gonna be showing up probably a lot more often, but again it feels like time will tell if that sustains. We also see, if I'm not mistaken here, the Rapid Blaster Pro also, I think now I'm just eyeballing it here for full disclaimer. I think the second most used third kit weapon that I've seen out of the bunch. If I'm not mistaken here from a quick glance, which is anybody here surprised about that?
Was only a matter of time. That gun has so much potential, being able to be a cooler anchor and then on a weapon like Rapid, where you can throw this really consistent chip damage from so far away, and you're also so mobile to the point where if you see a sniper on the map, you can like, hey, I'm gonna walk up to you, sniper, and I'm gonna start throwing these 35 damage, 85 directs at you. Or if there's a midline you're fighting, it's like, hey, I can space you out because I can just shoot, and kites and shoot more. However, there is a bit of a problem when it comes to having Rapid as your main cooler, as your only cooler. One, at the start of the game, Rapid is slow when it comes to building cooler. Over the course of the game, it's fine because you just throw out a lot of shots naturally, right? But when it comes to like if you're trying to just paint for like a 15-second cooler, that's not your dude. Also, gear building with Rapid, if you're the only cooler, is so hard because you need your special power, you need your charge up, you need your swim speed. You probably want a little bit of Ink Saber sub. You also want Intensify because if you jump without Intensify, you're gonna start crying. It's an absolute mess. So yeah.
Go ahead. No, keep going. I was gonna
Oh,
I wanted to hear what you were saying because I wanted to follow up on something.
yeah, for sure, for sure. So something that not only the second C team tried out, but also something that top players Prokara and Gray are talking about is the idea of running double cooler with it. You have your cooler Rapid, and all of a sudden you have the actual gear freedom the road you want because you have a Zap or a Vanilla Dapple that can focus more on the opening cooler, but also providing that cooler output through the game and still giving a lot more speed than something like a pen or an edit.
Right. And the thing about that is like I talked to the Nebraska team after the update came out because we had a small little practice thing going on, and I told them, okay, we've essentially remade Cooler, except this one has its own drawbacks. Like you said, it doesn't paint as well off the get go. You always, anytime you see a pencil in a competitive match, the map comes up. You see this like little nice, neat little star appear around spawn, and you're like, all right, well, Cooler in 10 minutes or Cooler in 10 seconds. We'll see y'all soon. But with Rapid Blasters, you just don't have that at the start. You're not going to have it. It's too slow for that to happen. But that's why I was interested in when you were going to bring up the double cooler thing, because the double cooler is when this comes alive. Now you have something that, like, say you bring out another weapon. In the case of the Area Cup teams, I'm seeing the 50 new 96 Scout come out. You still have other options around you like Zap, like conventional options anyway, that will be able to provide that second cooler. And that really changes things for the Rapid, because then you essentially have the second coming of the pencil, but now you also have another weapon that can overcome that. Now you have two coolers. It just goes on and on. It was only a matter of time until we found out just how powerful those weapons were, like you said. And I think we're starting to get there. In fact, we're already there.
Absolutely. It's just so cool. I really like what the new kids are doing for the game right now.
I'm a huge fan of a lot of the third kits in general. For any quick things that you want to know with the pro, the third kit, are you also surprised or not surprised? I guess either.
The Splattershot Pro?
No. The Rapid Blaster Pro, which I
Oh,
will get to the pro. Don't worry, I'll get to the Splattershot Pro in a bit.
I will say it is funny because I was running tryouts with a Rapid player, and then like they immediately dropped Cooler Rapid, and I was like, yes. But I mean, I don't think there's a blaster with Cooler
I don't think there is.
other than Rapid, so it's not like that's surprising. Um, I mean, I guess I didn't think they would add another. Well, I guess it kind of makes sense. They might have tried to free up the Cooler slot. I don't know if they think about that at all, but that like the depths. But no, it is a really interesting kit. I wonder if it had gotten a sub that was not a bomb, if it maybe would be better, because I feel like you're hurting for ink efficiency on that weapon. Um, but either way, I think it's really strong.
Julio, and I
Yeah,
think the
that's
and yep. Go ahead. No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, it's great that you actually brought up the suction bomb there. Gray actually had a similar impression with the suction, which Rapid Pro is a very funny weapon because stuff that is really bad on paper ends up being all right with it. Like for example, the like Gray actually likes the feeling of wide marker. I'm not sure if more than a bomb per se, but really likes it for the ability to have a get off me option and to have immediate damage output, right? And also, even though this isn't a new kit, the VAC Rapid, super divisive gun depending on the West and the East opinion. But at the top ends of the West and also in the Eastern opinion, Vanilla Rapid Pro is really nice. And the VAC actually helps the way it wants to play the game. So like this is a weapon that makes weird stuff like Dart and VAC work. So even though a suction bomb is like way better on paper than any of those stuff, like even combined arguably, they like stuff like wide marker or even like a fast chip bomb like a burst bomb could feel nicer. Yeah.
I think ink consumption was definitely one of the somewhat major concerns I had, but either way though, it's good to see that make its way through. Want to touch upon this one real quickly here. It was kind of I'm gonna say it was a matter of time before before a shooter with missiles in the form of the Splattershot Pros third kit make its way through. Every Splatoon 2 endgame meta survivor person was gonna probably inevitably see this. Are you at all surprised,
No.
Pastry?
Well, okay, it's not that bad. At least it's not that bad because they gave it to Pro, and right, Pro, you're this kind of fighty type support. You're not fully like a junior or like a shot or something, right? It's like you can still play the game, but yeah, around the board, Pro is. I talked about this in my show, but like arguably the best support when it comes to preventing someone from getting to stand where they want. Because like say someone wants to drop in a location, you can shark and then laser beam that guy almost like a squeezer. Obviously not as good as a squeezer, right? Because squeezer has more range, but you can do that. Also, you have really good bomb output because your ink efficiency, like it's all right. Like it's not bad, but like if you want to spec into sabers, like you can, you have the freedom to do that. And your ink efficiency is like all right. Plus, on top of that, something that is really powerful right now is pairing up with another player. Like for example, in the Area Cup run, something that Jordan and Jared would do when they were fighting in group stage against like a top team was they would pair up in fights a lot together, where the Dewey runs in, does 30 damage, Bucket comes up, cleans up that fight. However, all of a sudden you have a 190 missile shooter, and whenever they want to do that strategy to push together, they want to pair up and prior to play off each other's combos. All of a sudden they can't do that properly because there's giant nukes flying from the sky. So having that niche of a pretty solid shooter that's like good at denying space and also can mess with the way people usually like to play the game right now, it's really good. I'm not surprised at all to see it get played, especially for like a top player like Utan.
I feel like this was just truly inevitable just to see the pro arrive. Now, pro wasn't as popular from what I remember from in this particular game, just because of some of the kits that it's been getting. Even the Forge Pro is a super niche pick, but would anybody really be concerned at this point if they have to do with the pro with those missiles?
I think it's more at this point. I believe anyone playing competitive Splatoon, and mostly from what we've seen from Area Cup and tournaments so far, you're gonna be more concerned about weapons like the Mini and the Rapid Pro because we're starting to quickly realize how deadly these weapons can be. With Splattershot Pro, I understand the concern. I was a victim of the Splatoon 2 endgame as well, and I understand how many missiles were flying in the air by the time the sun set on Splatoon 2 competitive, but it's just not as big of an issue as we thought it'd be. I remember talking to a group of friends afterwards, or as the update came out, and I thought, oh goodness, this is the end. Welcome back, K-Shot. But the truth is, there's a lot more to worry about in these new kits than with the Splattershot Pro. Although I will say, it is a weapon that I wish we saw more of before this new Pro came out, because of, like we mentioned earlier, the ability for it to deny space. But I think now with this new kit, you're definitely going to see it a lot more. It should be more of a threat. I don't know how much of a threat it will be, especially compared to the things it's going up against, but you will see it a lot more, and you should at least be a little concerned about it.
I kind of feel the same way. I think it fulfills like the exact niche that you guys mentioned, like denying the space, and especially when you give it a splat bomb as well to help give you the space that you need. I think that is really cool to have. So those were the three weapons I saw that were most used. I know there was the 96. There was one team Snap that ran the 96 third kit as well. Other things to note was the dualies that also had the third kit, which I'm severely blanking on what the kit was for those dualies here real quickly. Which oh yeah, there it is. That's the one with the big bubble and the fizzy bomb options. That, not surprised there. We also had the stamper with the Booyah Bomb and the Auto Bomb, the sticker Splatana stamper show up as well, which I've noticed teams in the top 16 were running those weapons. Obviously, they didn't quite crack through the top 8, but that's kind of those weapons were kind of interesting to see, actually.
For sure. 96 is it's funny enough, it's another arguably underrated gem. Like when people saw the 96 come out, it's like whenever something has marker, it's like, all right, yeah, dude, yeah, all right, whatever. It's like that kind of feeling, right? But having a mid-range shooty type support, just the archetype of that is pretty nice. It's not as slow as something like edits, and because that you can spec it with like snipers, for example, or you can even run backwards with it, and you have some pretty alright comps. Like there are like multiple players in the West, like at the top end. It's like, yeah, you can do something like that. You can do something like that with the Core 96. So it feels a very interesting middle ground between not quite the short range, super fast, spammy shooters like Zap or in a Dewey's case like Dapple, right? But it's not quite that have a charge time and then just mow the opponents down or just snipe the opponents from super far away like the edit or the pen. It's a very nice middle ground. It's almost like what H3 tried to do, except it's good. And then yeah, super cool weapon there. But also the Stinker Splatana Stamper. Norishio did try it. After giving it a whirl in Area Cup, I mostly see Nori start to play V Stamper at that point, and I think that's fair. Like giving the new Splatana Stamper a shot, seeing how good it felt. But it seems he prefers the Zipcaster one instead, which is like is fair because Norishio has been playing Zipcaster Stamper for the dawn of Splatoon 3 and has innovated so much stuff when it comes to that. So I don't really blame him. I actually think that kid is stronger.
I'm not at all surprised with that vanilla stamper being pretty much the kid that a lot of stampers play, because it feels like fundamentally we even talk about the stamper with the crab, and then you have the stamper with the Booyah Bomb, the sticker stamper as well. I feel like the second and third kits play very different than what you're used to in the first kit overall. So not entirely surprised by that. So I do want to get to I do want to get to another thing real quickly, but I also want to throw in so last week in Splat Chat, the third episode, Nito, you would remember this one. We actually had to rank our third where we thought the third kits would fall. our
Oh,
read
boy.
with myself, Nito, Dark, and Falco. This is a quick reminder for those who are just trying to tune in for the most part with the winners. I think Nito, we are not entirely surprised that most of the picks that we had on the winners side kind of made an appearance.
No, not surprised at all. I mean, I mentioned it before, and I kind of said it again. I feel like the pro, the pro and the mini got the pro, the mini, and the pro, the mini, and the rapid all got the best kits. And I know I didn't say much of it at the first time around, but that rapid is basically a second cooler with its own set of drawbacks. But at the end of the day, it is a scary weapon to look at from like first impressions. Not surprised that it is the same case right now. I wish we did give more attention to that 96 because it is a funny kit to look, at. I know when it comes to line marker or angle shooter or whatever it's being called, I actually forgot. There's a couple of names I've heard it called. I just call it the little marker. But as far as I know, that one, it's not looked at as much because that sub is such a high. I don't want to say high risk. It's a high skill curve, and a high reward play, which is why I don't see too much of it. Obviously, you're gonna favor more conventional subs for that, but I do wish I paid a little more attention to that 96. But other than that, I like what we did that last time around.
The duelies were the ones that from our loser side made an appearance, but that's actually primarily just because there were better kits that the duelies had at the time, so that made a lot of sense for us. But I figured you guys would be beholden to know that information right away. That was a lot of talk about the area cup weapons, but even with all the third kits being talked about, now that people have had their hands on all the changes from the third weapons and all the changes from the recent patch, we gotta start some discussion somewhere, right? And the big discussion that definitely has showed up on my blue sky at some point is obviously the discussion surrounding the current meta, especially top level side. More importantly, one mode that has been the source of many discussions is Rainmaker. Everybody, we gotta open
boy.
Pandora's box with Rainmaker.
Oh boy.
Now, if anybody wants to talk about Rainmaker, feel free to be my guest. Why on earth is Rainmaker the big discussion here today?
So the awkward thing about Rainmaker, right? It's a defensive mode with hype moments. And how much the teams you play against or play with spec into that more defensive side, you either see the mode as like, wow, this mode can be very hype. It's, it can do some cool things. Or it can be, wow, we really did not push the objective for 3 minutes. Awesome. Great stuff. Very divisive mode.
I've seen so much division. A lot of it going over to the Kraken kind of being the special that everybody hones in on, especially because of the third kid splatter shot. But it's kind of intriguing to see the discussion around because I looked at the weapons like, well, I guess this kind of was coming with like the 30 new weapons that got introduced.
Yeah, I mean, like half of them got Kraken. It seems like most of this discussion is centering around Kraken, the special, because of how most of the new maps or really most of the Splatoon 3 maps are shaped, just being like a straight line towards one pedestal, one straight line towards the other. It seems like Kraken is now the special to beat because all you need to do is sit behind it and hope that nobody shoots at you enough that it actually gets to hit you at some point. But most of it's centered around Kraken. I know it's not something you want to play against, especially in a mode where you have to like control the pace, control where the objective goes, and that's where most of it seems to be going. I don't know that Rainmaker. It's at least for me, Rainmaker has always been a question of, all right, which team gets it past like 30 remaining, and if you get it past 30 remaining, as far as I've seen, you just might be golden. And apart from that, if it's like just right before that, I don't know what happens.
What makes Rainmaker
so...
You go ahead.
It's so interesting. So this is a term that I learned from from FLC. I'm obviously like old analysts back in Splatoon 2 that they got a content there, describing Splatoon as a high watermark game. basically what that means is that it doesn't matter how well you did on average. It's what is the best push you got. Because think about it, like tower, you push to 19, you could be on spawn, like for the rest of the game. But if your opponents don't push past that 19 point, it doesn't matter. That one push is all that matters. Same with Clams, and then really same with Rainmaker. And that fact there, it's a huge part of why Rainmaker can feel so just slow sometimes. And some like, okay, wow, it looks like instead of trying to push the Rainmaker, trying to at least maybe go from like 35 to like 19, the team is like, okay, I don't even want to risk pushing to 35. That's enough of a lead. The opponents have to break through a checkpoint. They have to push through all our mist, our Krakens that are spammed on cooldown because of our G-Shot, our Zukas that are spammed because of our new mini, and then, I'm just gonna park the rain in the spot. I don't mind just sitting here. You guys have to approach me.
With the new weapons, I think are only just gonna make that whole the discourse behind Rainmaker worse, because you exactly hit the two things. Because you got more Kraken options. The mini with the Zuka is just gonna likely going to be wrecking house. There you go. There's the post especially that talked about it too. Positive, but Rainmaker definitely the point of contention. But it feels like, especially when you factor in like all the common kits you see, it feels like it. I feel like my read is that Rainmaker is just going to get more and more stallier than before. I'm not sure if you guys agree with that.
I mean,
Yeah.
this is Splatoon 3. I saw it at the beginning of Splatoon 3, and I see it now. Games are more neutral than before. And call it what you want. Call it the maps themselves, or blame it on the maps themselves. Blame it on the fact that it doesn't seem like when you get past mid that, or anytime you get past like this middle line in mid, that you may not see teams doing much other than trying to get picks. That we sometimes forget about objective. Call it whatever you want. Just call it whatever you want. It just seems like games are more stally in Splatoon 3, which, again, blame it on what you want, but I don't know that Rainmaker is a direct casualty of it. Although, to your point, Kraken is Kraken is not really something you want to just like point a splatter shot towards and be like, all right, you can't get past me, because you can't get past Rainmaker.
But
Yeah, it's
now the other thing I wanted to bring up too is, isn't it also just a byproduct of how the Splatoon 3 maps are in general though? Because that one has also probably been the course of why this is being discussed. Are there even any good Rainmaker maps in Splatoon 3 to everybody's definition, I guess?
The ones that come from Splatoon 2.
so wrong. Because there's Rainmaker Undertow. You kind of have two routes. Smile. It's like, so like if someone ever like pulls up a planner and like tries to, you don't even have to pull up a planner. You can just go in game, right? Look at the ramp from the grass type area to the right checkpoints on Undertow. A mist covers all of that. Awesome. All right, let's go to the left side. Oh, it's unequal, and then a mist also covers all of that. Wow. And then as you look through more and more Rainmaker maps, you see these really thin passageways that the Rainmaker has to cross through that are just begging to get spammed down by a mist or a Zuka or a Rapid Pro that's spamming you. Rapid Pro is really good at Rainmaker, by the way. Or like we're talking about Kraken, for example, right? You have to push. You can't even like flake around and try to maneuver around the Rainmaker. You don't even have a chance. You just have to stay in mid and pray that the Rainmaker doesn't die, because the Kraken's gonna be faster than it, because the Rainmaker is like debuffed. It is scoring points at Rainmaker is just an absolute mess right now, and it's not getting better because of the kids. So I would not be surprised to see a more stalling metagame.
Sorry, I'm seeing the Chara post from Blue Sky, and I'm thinking, I mean, you look at all what the meta has been for a good while now, how long we talked about Crab, how long we talked about Zuka and Cooler, and I'm like, has it most of competitive Splatoon been super special heavy, stally? And I'm like, I don't know. Feel free to challenge me, obviously, but like, I've been looking at this post and I'm like, yeah, that's been Splatoon 3. I mean, again, I'm willing to admit Kraken's gonna make Rainmaker pain in the tucks to deal with, but like, this is kind of where we've been.
I love that you bring that up. That I just have to say it 100% depends on the mode. Like 100%. Because Clams, Rainmaker, those games on those modes go to 5 minutes, because really shows off one, the map design, to the massive difficulty in scoring points. That's manifested in different ways, though, right? Because in Rainmaker, it's because of all the spam. But in Clams, that's more of you need to take fights to take space in Clams. But because the goals are so far apart from each other, teams are going to fight a lot. But then you have to fight once to get from your spawn to mid. And you have to fight again to get your like mid to kind of the goal, and you have to fight a third time to actually get to the goal. And then after winning that chain of fights, you can finally actually start scoring. When all those 3-4 fights before, you have the chance of just losing your clans. So I wouldn't really say it becomes like stally in that sense, but it's very difficult to score there. But zones, I would say, is actually not that stally at all. And if we look at one of the most recent area, well, the most recent area cup, right? The team that won, Domination, the way that they will play is they would have Toto on the Mints and they'd have Tiramisu on the Guga. They would take as many aggressive fights as they can, trying to proc Hunts, trying to proc QR. And as they start to scale up, their mini spying player, the new mini spying player in Ryukun, would paint around the map, put beacon there, beacon there, beacon there, trying to just paint around like that. And when they get a hold, they would fight. Because they would just go for a trade, land in the beacon, fight more, get a trade, get the core on the jump, they're going to jump to the pen. The mini spines deploying more beacons. So it's like, it's not really stally in that sense. At the end of the day, it's just like really dependent on the mode.
I actually had to dig up the map list for Rainmaker maps that I've seen get played across tournaments. Now, obviously, your mileage may vary on how visible some of these maps are. Obviously, people know that Undertow is probably one of the best Rainmaker maps in general. But other Rainmaker maps in general, to help aid this discussion here, you got Scorch Gorge Rainmaker that sees airtime, Museum de Alfonsino Rainmaker as well, Humpback Pump Track, as divisive as that is, and how falling claustrophobic that is, that does get airtime. And then the uncommon ones, the ones that kind of appear on occasional map lists, you see Manta Maria, Crab Lake, Capital, and the one time when one Ludi season ran Ramen Rainmaker as well. And I think that those, if you look at those list of maps, I can kind of see why this discourse is being brought up, because there's only like 4 really good maps, and the rest are either just trash or it's very mid.
Yeah, it's a rough. Yeah, you go.
No, I was just saying, yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's welcome to Splatoon 3.
That's kind of the I feel like with these new weapons, I feel like it's only just going to get worse for some of the maps in general. Maybe would we ever see a time that Rainmaker just does not see the light of day in some tournaments, or would we only see it in certain top level that never makes appearance at all?
It's interesting. It really depends on the sort of how willing are both of the teams on average to play to the things that make the mode really stally, right? Where it's like something that actually Japan would do, that area cup, the area cup TO was hosted, was a canvas cup that was Rainmaker only. And we saw the worst of Rainmaker there. We saw double missed VAC comps that would play extremely slow, extremely stally, try to get one lead and then just miss all for the rest of the game. But that's not everybody's Rainmaker, quote unquote. There's actually a post from Pika Dave talking about the idea of competitive Splatoon as bubbles, like a sort of like top level bubble, mid level, low level, that kind of thing. And the idea Pika brings up is that the type of Rainmaker that is played and talked about at the top end may not necessarily be the same Rainmaker that happens at the sort of mid level, at the low level. Though at those levels, on average, you don't have to worry as much about people picking double mist and stalling for the rest of the game. Like, they're just gonna fight for the love of the game. Or
you hit exactly the point I wanted to bring up, Pastry, because if you Rainmaker across, I do my tiering system. You have low level, mid level, and then top level. When I witnessed top level itself, they pretty much know the modes in and out, and they know how to play around that. Most teams around that mid to low level would either be playing it either at a slower, more methodical pace, if you will, and it may we will be hurt eventually. So
we're blue.
Yeah, we're blue. We suddenly popped up now. So The reason why I mentioned that is yeah, there we go. We're all back in. We're all back
Sorry,
in
my
square.
internet had a moment.
Woo!
Apologies.
It does that.
You're,
Yeah, that was.
yeah, don't worry. The internet's interesting. Fern, any thoughts on any of the Rainmaker on Rainmaker in general as a whole with the newer patch? Oh, if we can hear him.
I agree.
Yep. Is he
Microphone, what do
busy
you
fumbling
think?
around? We got the microphone. We got the microphone camera there. We'll get you back here, Fern. Don't worry.
Microfern.
That
Will.
should work.
Microfern. Did it
That
unplug
should-
itself? We can hear you again.
No, it just kind of like turns itself off. So I can tell you that like in mid level I don't see a lot of missed like I don't play a lot of
No.
super stalling missed comps. People like to fight in Rainmaker, or at least to like throw a lot of bombs at shield. I mean, I've never really had any qualms with it, but I play a weapon with a pop combo and suction bomb and an AoE special. Um, I think a lot of people think of Rainmaker as like the fastest mode, like as the most aggressive and like fast mode. So I think the idea of Rainmaker as being like super stally and boring and nothing ever happens is like kind of alien to I think a lot of people who either don't play or don't watch top level. Um I know I was like, well, what do you mean like the game's nothing happens in a Rainmaker game? It's Rainmaker. Um so I think maybe that's why people are being like, or maybe why it was like a shock to people that Tubble players are saying that Rainmaker was super boring, just because like the experience, like you were saying, the experience of it is so different at different levels. Probably more than most other modes. So yeah.
My app comparison is how I know this is not like directly the Rainmaker mode discussion in general, but more zones feel so different to watch when you compare it across all three levels. Like top level, they just play fast and they know how to play each of the map as a whole. And then you have like, okay, maybe mid level, sure they have an idea, but things aren't as fine tuned. And low level, it's just kind of like trying to figure out like how to play zones, and it's still trying to get a hold of things. It feels like for people who are kind of shocked, saying why on earth is our top level complaining about Rainmaker? I feel like that should be the opener. Is if you watch different specific tournaments, you'll kind of get a grasp on how teams specifically play. Too, at least my read, everybody is. I don't think we'll see Rain. I think we'll still see Rainmaker, obviously, in across all levels. But I wouldn't be shocked if in specific top level tournaments like 20xx, for lack of a better name I can think of, Rainmaker disappears entirely. I feel
Yeah,
my read on that.
that's fair. I will say the idea of splitting, the levels into bubbles, I don't fully agree with that, because like there's more fluidity to it. A player can be a top player in mechanics, but when it comes to their callouts, they may be around the average mid-level player. But I think the big idea is like, on average, how does the experience of the mode feel? And yeah, as you pinpointed, majors like 20xx may be like, you know what? Pretty much all of our top players don't like Rainmaker. Japan doesn't play Rainmaker. Let's not do that. But then, like for, it's like throw out like I don't know, like World 9 or something, right? Or just like, I don't know, some kind of entry type of tournament. It's like, well, most players aren't going to pick Mini and Zuga spam on Rainmaker, probably, hopefully. So like, it'll be fine.
And seeing the thread here that Pika Dave posted is exactly what it is. Like, because when you see top level players kind of talking about Rainmaker as well, it's gonna pretty much be what other top level players are gonna think of. And naturally, we all of us here in the audience are wanting to be at that top level. We want to try to value their opinions because, wait, hey, they must be the best of the best. They must mean they're right, or in some capacity. But I feel like it's gonna take time for any team to try to understand the intricacies of how to play that specific map mode combination. It's exactly why I think if anything, we'll still see the same maps unless the meta completely breaks the Rainmaker map pool in half or something crazy like that, or heaven
Yeah.
forbid, Mincemeat Rainmaker becomes viable. If there's any Mincemeat Rainmaker enjoyers out there, please holler at me because I want to talk with you sometime. That's
Oh God, there are those out there. I am so sorry. What is wrong
No,
with you?
I mean, okay. Genuinely, we used to play Mincemeat Rainmaker in
Why?
tournaments. It's actually one of the better modes on that map. It like in Crab mode, I remember I think Penguin playing it in tournaments in early Splatoon 3. It's honestly not that bad compared to like Mincemeat Tower and Clamps. I mean, I'm a Mincemeat supporter, but except for Clamps, I think it's better than people give it credit for. But
You
I
know,
mean, if
I
we're gonna play,
as the like the sole turf war enjoyer of the West, I feel that nobody likes turf war. I try to ask anybody in the West to play turf war. Like one single time, no one plays it.
I mean, I tell
All it-
my people at Queen Corn that like all Splatoon is turf war if you think about it, and not to the same degree that you're probably talking about, Pastry, but like I think everything's turf war if you think about it. We're all turfing to some degree, so why? Let's just. I mean, everything's turf war once you think about it. Heck, your daily life is probably turf war.
I don't know if I want my daily life to be turf war. Need I don't think anywhere near me wants to be like a paintball area. Heaven forbid on that front. Look,
Might be.
I understand. Look, I understand turf war, but I also use turf war as an excuse to trial out weapons. Admittedly, so I might have a very clouded view of of turf war as a whole. So take that as you will. Good. I'm also probably one of the rare people that actually that enjoys Brine Water Rainmaker, but it's more of a sicko love more than actually believing that it's viable. Pastry, how many minutes you got left, by the way? I'm just curious.
I think we can go into like one more topic, and then I'm probably gonna have to go. But
A-
there's
anything you're particularly interested in before you bolt?
yeah. Well, this is a little bit of a pivot back to Harry Cup once again, but gotta talk about this because there is a mythical gun that has been the Mr. Potential gun for God knows how long. Wall Booyah, two shot K-Gal in quotations, the Googa Dually, it won.
Wait,
Like
I completely forgot about that.
it's insane though. Like nobody ever thought that Googa would do something. They just thought like, okay, well, you know, maybe a one trick would do something one day, but at the same time, the kid's been out for so long anyway, right? The reason why Googa finally did something is the one god Googa got off their butt and stopped playing solo queue and was like, I'll do a tournament or two. You know, I haven't done tournaments in like, you know, half a decade. I'll give it a whirl. Tiramisu came back. And the two tournaments that he did, after coming back into competitive, he got fourth, the patch happened, and then he got first. So if that's not a like, well, it may yes, of course it was probably by Google, right? But that just has to show like if a player is a top player at one time, they're probably gonna still be a top player for like a long while. They have to be like super washed. But it's so interesting though. I really like two things about that group. One, the builds between Tiramisu and Toto. That was the Google Mints duo that won. And two, their playstyle, which is so interesting. We talked about it a little bit when we were talking about like if Splatoon 3 solely, but oh, it's so good. It's so good.
I actually know like a few one trick Gluga players that will probably be happy to hear about that news. Is this just a really good Gluga Dualies player in that won the tournament rather?
I would have to say yes because Tiramisu is actually just insane. Like bro has been a top player for a long time. Most players might not see him nowadays because like he mostly just does solo. But when he does do solo, he is top ranked. He has really good results. His Google is really consistent. If you watch his gameplay, he is just a monster on the weapon. And just in general, he's been proving the gun has potential since Splatoon 2, basically, funnily enough, with the wall and baller kits. this one has wall booyah for reference. But everyone has been saying, the gun is sort of in that B to A tier range where it's like, yeah, you could win with this. But yeah.
I feel like it leads the argument of depending on the player that holds the weapon will ultimately determine how good the weapon was in that tournament. Because if we look at a bubble and we think, oh, Gluga's, we can just throw in the trash later, and then you just give it to somebody who could play Gluga as well as Tiramisu, I think you mentioned. I feel like that adds like a whole bunch of different layers into is this weapon actually good?
Yeah. The ability to apply this theory, it's so important. It takes so many hours. It takes real dedication to your gun. But I gotta talk about something. So there is an ability that both Toto and Tiramisu use, an exclusive one, that if you ask someone if this ability was good, they would say no, like 9 times out of 10 minimum, and just never cease play. They both ran QR Haunts builds in 2025 with Cooler.
Nice.
Now, if you guys don't know what Haunt does, which I don't blame you because no one uses the ability, if you die, you create a thermal ink effect on the opponent. And what that does is if your opponent that killed you is just standing up, you can start to see them through walls. Now, it won't work if you're too close, and it won't work if they're in squid form, but this could help with detection every now and then. Usually you want to pair Haunts with QR so you can just get as many Haunt procs as possible. And also, which is pretty nice, if you specifically pick off the player that is haunted, like has the Haunts debuff, you get a respawn Punisher effect on them. So basically you kill them for longer.
That's crazy. And yeah, I completely forgot that Haunt was an ability that existed.
Yeah. And it's like they both run it too, which is insane. But I think for the way that they played the tournament, it makes sense. Their strategy would be to have Dusu and Pen, cycle cooler, cycle jumps, generally play sometimes their crossfire, but usually be an anchor for jumps. But once they would start to create a hold, which they would create that hold through Guga finding a wall kill on someone, right? Where it's like both players are neutral, and then one of the opponents moves from cover out into the open. Tiramisu sees that, throws down the wall, rolls in, bam, bam, gets a kill, and then the rest of the team can open up from that. Once that starts to happen, what Ryukun would do is start to move around to the left side, move around to the right side, paint, place beacon over here, there, all that. The Zukas also will help as well. But generally the idea is have that first kill happen, set up paints and beacons as soon as possible, and then Toto and Tiramisu will just start to blitz it down. They will jump to the most aggressive spot they can, start a fight on the opponent's plat, or start it from a flank on their side to force them to look backwards away from zone. And then if they die, that doesn't matter. One, they're going to be proccing Haunts. They may have QR, they may have Cooler, but they can just jump back to the beacon, or they can jump back to Dusu. So it's almost like you're gambling. Like you're just getting so many chances to gamble, just nuking the opponents by having so many opportunities to rush in. It's a really unique way to play the game. And I think for double Haunts, it makes sense.
I kind of like the idea, especially the theory behind using Haunts in that scenario. But I wouldn't be shocked if that just never sees the light of day. But that is really cool to see.
Yeah.
That is actually genuinely really cool to see, though.
Okay.
Yeah, quite clever.
Pastry, I don't know if you would know this, but do you have any idea what like Tiramisu's sense is?
It's up there.
I'm not fully sure, but I could check it out. I'll post in the comments of this podcast what the sense is if I can't find it.
Oh, we'll hear Fern some other time because this thing might have unplugged itself once more.
Oh, what happens?
Yeah, we got all the tech stuff. There you go.
I think the West Skluka representative is kind of Jared. And like I think Jared was trying it out at certain points and was saying that it was like such an aim dependent weapon that it wasn't like either consistent or just he wasn't gonna pick it over other options. And I was looking at a tiramisu VOD, and I was kind of surprised to see that, like, I kind of thought they'd be like an aim god, and that doesn't seem like fully the case. Like their sense actually looks very low. And I'm just wondering if like if you would have anything, is that like a stylistic difference, or do you think it's just they kind of just pop off anyway, or
I
if you
mean,
know anything about that?
I do agree. Like the ceiling of aim from players like Kotaji, for example, right? Where it's like Kotaji is a Splat Dewey player, but if
Oh, I know them.
yeah, for sure. Like Kotaji's aim is ridiculously good. I don't think Tiramisu's aim is at that level. It's of course consistent, but like as you're saying, there is more of a style element to it where it's like you don't have to be as crazy on the aim with like a Guga compared to like a Splat Dewey because you have the wall that's a little bit forgiving, you have the range that's more forgiving. So where I think it like as long as you're like just somewhere consistent, like it'll be fine. It what I noticed a lot more about Tiramisu and like Tiramisu's strength is how well he uses the wall to find aggressive timings. He's really, really good when it comes to doing that.
That's fascinating. I feel like if we get the sense information there, I feel like we get an idea on how Tiramisu's aim as a whole or how they play as a whole is going to be important. Still able to stick with us, Space, or you got a bolt? I know you got the stop coming up here.
Well, I gotta say, I enjoyed it. You know, we got to talk about area, a couple of new weapons, all that fun stuff there. And gotta say, everyone. Well, I'll just talk like some of my socials then, like what you guys can do. But yeah, I stream on, I stream on Twitch almost every single day at Peak Puppy Pastry. I make a lot of posts about Twitter and Blue Sky on Twitter and Blue Sky about competitive Splatoon. Actually, just today, I posted about a conversation I had with Lobster, one of pretty much the best Japanese Splatoon blaster player and probably like contention for the best player in the world right now. He made an X-Rank tier list when it comes to which blaster is the best, and I actually have notes of about the conversation I had in there. So if you want to check out my Blue Sky, you can learn about Lobster and what he thinks about the best blasters, how good each of the blasters are in the game. And yeah, I also want to say there is an area cup that's going to happen on the 23rd today. Oh, 23rd, not today, but on the 23rd, June 23rd. And it's going to be another new patch. People have more time to test. People have a better idea of what is good, what's not good. So y'all better be on the lookout for that. Y'all be on the lookout.
Where can we watch Area Cup?
Absolutely. Yeah, their main spots is quite literally their YouTube channel just called Area Cup. They have a stream up. Well, not up right now, but a stream that you can schedule to have notifications for. It happens at 7 a.m. EST. Let me double check here. 7 a.m. EST. 8 a.m. Sorry. It starts at 8 a.m. EST. The tournament itself starts at 7 a.m. EST, but then the stream starts at 8 a.m. EST. So check out this link here. I'm going to post it both in the Twitch as well as in the YouTube. Click that link if you guys want to be notified for the upcoming Area Cup stream. It's going to be awesome.
All right.
Of course, make sure you click on Pastry stream at unreasonable hours. That's when you stream normally, right?
Reasonable and unreasonable. It's going to do both.
Falco and
Might as well
Falco, Nito, and myself are probably morning people, so we'd probably be able to tune in if we wanted to.
Morning's great.
Right?
I would just say, but you know, go on.
Yeah.
Anything else, or is that your departure?
Pretty much. That's pretty much it. The main points here. There's still gonna be way more discussion though, so you guys better keep watching. There's gonna be great stuff coming up.
Smash the follow button. Thanks for hanging out with us, Pastry.
Yeah.
All right. That is Pink Puffy Pastry, our Area Cup correspondent, the local one to that gave us all the amazing information there as well. She had to go a little early, so we'll resume either with the three of us, or we might get jump scared by random guests later down the road. All right, we got Area Cup.
Actually,
Only one way to find out.
Just because
Only one way to
Vapor's
find
coming in. Vapor's coming in. Vapor's coming in.
Oh,
There.
okay.
Ah,
Think
dang
I
it!
was gonna say
Sorry, what?
What do you mean?
It's hot mic. It's a hot mic BRB. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
No.
It's crazy.
We'll be right back here in just a few moments.
Guys, Keen is no longer eating.
Oh shoot! I should update that.
I'm gonna be right back. I'm gonna pee. Real
Go
fast.
for it. Yeah, take a
think.
break. Get your water in. It's been an hour. I like doing the breaks in between the guest changes because you guys need breaks. Can't overwork you guys. I don't pay you guys enough for that.
I barely.
Aw. Oh, dude.
I was doing player research half the time, so.
Yeah, I didn't mean. I wasn't sure if you wanted to chime in on the discussion or if you were just waiting for the right time to talk because I knew
Yeah.
there were the two topics.
Yeah, sorry,
But all
kid.
the
I didn't mean to.
topics, by the way, I need to.
Shit.
Fuck it.
No. Well, yeah, I didn't realize Vapor was joining us, which that
Oh,
works
girls do
just as
okay.
well.
Yeah,
It's whatever.
it was a last minute thing because when I realized Pastry had to go early, I was like, Vapor, you're going in. You were on the bench.
Oh no, it's my turn.
Not an issue. I knew Pastry had to go, so I wasn't sure if I was doing it with a quorum of 3.
Nah.
I haven't set it up for just 3, so it's 4 or nothing. 4 or I get on the mic, on the cam and the mic.
We'll probably pick it up with SAC unless you guys want to talk Champions Cup.
Let's talk SAC first. I think that'd be chill.
Yeah.
I'm slacking on
There's
the
no link to
on the
SSC somewhere,
topics myself.
so I can scan for.
That is a great point. I should
Go
pull that up.
SAC. We'll lead in with SAC. I'll probably just talk about the tournament briefly, and then we'll talk about the big discourses production and the 6-hour runtime. I have a lot of stuff I want to talk about with that anyway. So
Yeah.
hi. I know we're not muted. We got a minute 10 seconds left. How are you
You're
guys doing?
spoiling it,
out there in the
guys.
audience?
Hey
No
guys,
spoilers.
we love hot mic breaks. Why not?
I just
Exactly.
typed SAC into the user search bar.
Yeah.
Why did you look up SAC in the user search bar?
I was
Oh
looking
my
at the
God.
user search bar.
I lived.
Hey Nito, say hi to the audience for us.
Hi to the audience for us.
That's
Okay.
so real.
I finally found the link. Sorry, Fern. There we go.
Whoa.
You can find the VODs on probably IPL or
Yeah,
literally
I found
every.
it, so.
Why? Oh,
There's so many British people that took over. I never realized. We were just giving British people a stage.
British people aren't real?
Oh wait,
This is why
No.
this is why we're a hot
British
mic the
people in
entire
France. How did that
time.
even happen? They're like,
What do you mean, hot mic?
CKK knows what he's doing.
What do you
CKK knows what he was doing.
I mean, it's distinct. That's like the British people and Rafa.
Yeah, title disruption. That's mostly British people.
You could have put us on the camera anyway. This is
Make
why
it
Right,
we're
right.
professional.
we're back. Oh wait, I
Look,
need to
look,
change his name.
Whatever.
Look. We're figuring it out on the fly. Oh yeah, by the way, we're back from the break.
You are?
We
I hope
are.
you guys didn't. I know, right? I know, right? The 3-minute intermission full of us trying to figure out what happened behind the scenes. Don't worry. Vapor's here taking our fourth member
okay.
here. Just casual wind in. We're just gonna slide you into this one. Let's start talking here. SAC season 10 finale happened. Was it really last weekend? It really was, wasn't it?
Wow.
By the way, huge shout outs to Distinct the winners of SAC season 10. Second place, Titles Disruption, and third place, the Big Fat Sea Cows for all the CCA fans out there making its way. Anything real quickly you want to know with SAC, y'all, or do we want to talk about the big thing that was discussed?
I don't think we can really say anything without getting straight into the big discussion that even players have complained about.
All right. I'm cool with that too. Let's go right into it. So if you guys don't know with SAC, there were 4 streams. You could watch it in
Mhm.
4 different channels. You could watch an IPL for the main channel. Dapples was another one. Oh, Splatoon Tourney was another, and Under Pressure or UP Splatoon was the other. One of the big discussion points that happened was it was a 6-hour tournament runtime, I believe, was the estimated runtime for this particular tournament. Now, it feels like it's been a long time since I've had a 6-hour tournament runtime, but actually I think I've had to work on tournaments that had 5 to 8 hours of tournament runtime, by the way, in the past. And Faber, you would know easily what I'm referring to there. Let's get to this one. By the way, huge shouts to production for being really bold for the 4
Mhm.
channels where you can watch nearly all the matches of SEC, endless amount of content. It was really cool. However, I need to ask you guys as players, how would you guys feel during this if you guys ever had to be in a tournament that ran for 6 hours?
Let's start
I
with Fred.
wouldn't.
Vern, you're up.
Well, I mean, I've played in really long running low inks. It's the problem isn't that it runs for 6 hours. The problem is that it runs for 6 hours because there are 4 streams. Like, if the tournament is just really big, it doesn't matter because you're still playing the game. But if I was in a tournament and it's a double limb tournament with 12 teams, like there's no philosophical reason it should run 6 hours beyond the streams. I think if I was in a tournament and I looked at my VOD at the end of the day and it was like 4 hours of waiting for stream and like 2 hours of playing the actual game, I would probably lose it a little bit. Like I don't know if I think if you're going for the multi-stream thing, like you kind of have no choice. I wonder if maybe it would have been wiser for them to just make it 2 days long and like then you don't have to do everything at once. I think like to speak on like other esports, like I think when you see larger esports like Valorant, for example, Masters Toronto is happening right now. Every single game in Masters Toronto is streamed, and they've done that by spreading the tournament across like literally like 3 weeks or something. It's so long. Obviously, we wouldn't do that to that extent, but I kind of wonder if they just made it a 2-day tournament and done like some winners matches, some losers matches. It might not have been as a crazy runtime. Like 6 hours, it's like, okay, you played Splatoon for 6 hours, but you didn't actually play Splatoon for 6 hours. You played
Mhm.
like Open or something for 6 hours while you waited for your like 2 matches to happen and they were both game 5s or something. So like yeah, I can see how that would have probably been frustrating for a lot of players, definitely.
I feel like it goes back to the age-old discussion of, do we really need to have all of our matches be streamed at the cost of, dragging this out longer and keeping the players basically like, well, are we really just going to be waiting for just because, street match B was happening in winners bracket while we're saying losers saying we just want to get past the tournament. I feel like that's just going to keep adding more fuel to that discussion in general. But then it also goes back to the whole discussion too of, well, we love to get as much coverage as we can of the tournament as possible. So it feels like there's always a battle that you're gonna have.
Yeah, so something that Hammy brought up on his own podcast, Critical Inking. I made a post about that myself, giving my own opinions. And one thing that Hammy expressed during that is the SAC staff focused heavily on the actual visuals and the value that it can give the viewer, but without really telling the storylines or the emphasis towards the teams and players, which ended up costing a lot of which had the players not feel like they were invested enough in their own promotion for the event, and the viewers didn't have enough story to follow off of it.
That's exactly where I wanted to go to as well, because us as spectators and especially as commentators, because we love to tell the stories to you all. I love to, if you guys listen to me before, is everybody wants to hear like the story or like the players to look out for in like head to what did SAC do? They did Head to head, I believe, was the graphic display, for the stats they displayed. There was another one I'm completely blanking on. Someone's gonna have to
There was a
remind me
highlight
on
and a
that
head
one.
to head. I could say
Was
because I
okay.
was on the production for that one. Well, I was one of
Yeah.
the streamers for the day.
Thank you for confirming. Yeah, it was the highlights. I knew I was missing one aspect of it. It kind of felt like so a lot of it, and I've been in a I actually had helped TO the tournament that had a long runtime because we also wanted to try to stream every match as we could, and that just ran so long. It's like it feels like we have to balance out like what do the spectators want versus what the players are willing to deal with. I feel like that's just gonna be an age-old discussion
Yeah.
that's gonna be so hard to solve.
Yeah, especially when you get to stream pathing as well, where in some cases they ended up streaming or the same channel ended up streaming two lower bracket matchups in the same round, where at that point you're basically throwing off what you would regularly have, which is just like one matchup per round per stream, which would take less time. We could probably cut, if we just did round by round across all the streams, we could probably cut that time down to 4.5, maybe 5 hours. But catching all of those in multiple rounds, that's kind of what extends the time so long.
I have something to add here, and honestly, the idea of having 4 streams isn't new. I know we did it for
Mhm.
the Splatoon LAN championships back when we had all the back in like April. I already forgot, and I was in there. Great.
It was
Anyway,
April.
but like it's ambitious because you had 4 streams. We already talked about the story part, and in that, like we didn't give. I feel like there wasn't a reason for people to watch all 4 of those streams because we just didn't have anything to tie those matches to say, hey, come watch this. These 2 teams are gonna beat each other up, and not much else. Whereas with like the Splatoon LAN championships, it was like, all right, the most obvious that comes out in my mind, and probably y'all's mind too, is here's Arizona, here's Texas, here's Houston, here's H-Town Splashdown, here's Sunset Surge. They're about to beat each other up. Go watch this. And then we have other tournaments throughout this, or other matches throughout the stream, in which all of them have their own unique stories. I feel like a format like that, where you have multiple strings going on at the same time, is great if you have a reason for people to go watch them. Because obviously, for me, if I hadn't been already involved in the big thing where we just like went around covering every game, but I would have went to go watch that H-Town Splashdown versus Sunset Surge match because, like, well, yeah, I'm a Texan. I want to see Texas do well, but then I have a reason to go watch that other matches, and that's what I think happened here. It's just like it was a little too ambitious.
I think for me the most impressive thing about the fact that there were 4 streams was that the 4 streams were like it was the IPL channel and then the Dapple Productions channel, and then I don't remember what the other 2 were. I think it was Splatoon Tourney and then like one other
Yep.
one. And I looked at that and I was
Under
like, oh my god,
pressure.
they talk to each other. But uh yeah, it's I would always, I mean, as much as I think stream production value is really good for legitimizing ourselves, um I I'm like a person who would much rather watch a Chara cast where the only production value is white text in the bottom left corner that says the score, because Chara is just really good at casting and presenting the tournament, and he knows, like, if he's casting top level, he knows everyone and he can talk about them, than like a random IPL stream where um like where the transitions are really clean or something. That you have.
Yeah.
But
That's
like I mean I don't know if I'm in the minority or majority on that, but like I think some stream production should not be the end all be all as to how good a tournament is, because like the virtue of SAC is that you have 4 entire qualifiers to set up the finale, and there's crazy storylines going to the finale. Like that's the reason you make the they do like team intros for every team. There's like 12 of them. They did it last season. like in last season, there was like I played SEC season 9. I was in playoff like finals for SEC season 9. There was like the big storylines were like, is anyone actually going to be able to beat Chocolate Milkshake? We beat Chocolate Milkshake in qualifiers. Is anybody going to be actually be able to beat Chocolate Milkshake like for real? And then at the end of the season, as like and then Cafeteria went on a run, and then like Trick of Jones Vapor, who literally only played like one qualifier or something, just like crushed everyone in like you played 1 or 2. I don't know how many you played.
Well, I think we played all the qualifiers.
all of them,
We just did not have a good performance at all.
Got it. Okay. Right, because like I think you got into finals like not that high seeded, and then you just like blasted everybody.
Mhm.
And that was also like kind of the underdog run. And it's like the point of SAC is that all the mid-level teams get to like is that you get to determine like the best mid-level team, and like that's the storyline going up to it. And it's like I don't care if we're doing Dapper Productions ads on the stream, like that's not why I'm watching the tournament.
That's actually a big point here because yeah, there were 4 streams for LCS or League Championship qualifiers, or excuse me, I'm getting the LAN Championship.
Right.
I knew the minute I spoke that I spoke that I got it wrong. Falco's gonna burn me at the stake later.
It's
But the
over for
point-
you.
Yeah, it's over for me. No, LCS. The reason Nito hit, I feel like Nito hit the point exactly was it's people had reason to be invested because it was what a bunch of land support too. You got people that were invested in H Town. You got people that were invested in C who were part of CBEL. They felt like they could be one with the team.
It's literally a region matchup.
It's a
That's all it is.
it's a regional battle exactly. And I applaud SAC for really trying what they did. The head-to-head and the highlight packages were all genuinely cool. I feel like we do definitely need a lot more of it. I think it's one of those cases where if you want to try it out and just try innovating on the spot, it's awesome. I love innovation as much as the other people. But we also have to figure out why we want to be invested in SAC as a whole,
Yeah.
and that was more for the mid-level teams. And I think that was kind of the struggle that I think people had as well on top of it.
So like, okay, I know I commented on it, and I know I was with Hammy, and this is the part where I give Hammy lots of credit because he tried hard to make a story out of every player that we saw. I know I saw him pulling up stats from individual players a lot more than I did, and I had to commend him a lot. I have to commend him for it because he was trying to make those stories happen. Maybe we didn't have them already, and maybe they already existed, but we're giving stats. He was giving out stats like, all right, this player did this throughout SIC. Hey, this player did that. This player did that. And I'm like, all right, look, I'm going to give you the setup. Like, I'm throwing you the pitch. You're going to have to hit the home run because clearly I'm not doing it as much. And I like what you're doing here. And there's only so much that a commentator can do at that specific moment. Like one of y'all said, I already forgot who, but like, there has to be some setup leading up to it. The LAN Championship Showdown had that because we had people from different regions playing, and that automatically connects you to like, all right, somebody from like the Midwest looks at whoever won Chai Shoals. Someone from the Pacific Northwest is looking at who won Sea Battle. That story is already there. SAC didn't necessarily have that, so we had to make it up as we went along. Again, shoutouts to Hammy for that. Did great with that, but that's really like the problem there is that we kind of had to try to get things like not necessarily milk things, but try to like make something there that maybe wasn't already there.
We were kind of in a tough position because Fusion and I did second block for Dapple Productions. Nito, you guys would have had the most amount of research. You guys probably could have round 1 and then follow right along. We had to pick it up from in the middle of the tournament. Fusion and I did winners semis and we did losers quarterfinals, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So it was just like we got to figure out. Okay, we got to quickly do some quick research. Like what teams do we know are gonna be playing at this time? And we had to learn this on the fly too because we're waiting for the previous matches to finish too. So it's like if you want, we get the research that Hamid did was incredible from what what it sounded like.
Yeah,
we're kind of in a tough spot when you're in the block that's like directly switched between the opening block, I like to call it, and the closing block, which Lily and 9 I think did at the very end. So it's like it was kind of interesting, but not to go off on that ramble. I did see an interesting take that I think somebody who posted is, do we really need 4 streams? Why don't we try to reduce to 2 the next time we do it for SAC? I'm not sure what you like have less streams and just focus on getting the tournament to run. I'm not sure what
Yeah.
your guys' thoughts are as a spectator and as a player.
Yeah, I think just Brawlhalla runs. I think the practice of having like a mainstream, which is you're putting most of your production value into, and then like a side stream just for sets that people want to see but like can't get on the mainstream, is really common. Like Brawlhalla, they run main Brawlhalla and then like Pro Brawlhalla, or like Valorant, not Valorant. Like Rocket League will have like a crowd cam. Now that's what they're doing for like the
Mhm.
secondary. But I think they might have run a second stream at some point. I don't, maybe not. Um, like talking about the storylines, like just looking at the teams in this tournament, I feel like I don't know how Distinct got seed 5. In my mind, they're probably clearly the best team here.
I
I'm like, yeah,
I know exactly how the seeds work. Top 4 were the qualifier winners, from
Mhm.
their
oh,
respective side. So
got it.
it could very well be that Distinct never didn't win the turn, but they led in circuit points.
Yeah, that's weird. I feel like it was just off circuit points last time in season 9, but
That changed as of this season.
I see.
It was a
Okay.
combination. It was like winners
Hmm.
from every qualifier automatically qualified. Then it was
Mhm.
points, which is why Distinct, who got like second in 2 of the qualifiers, ended up being the best out of the teams that didn't already win.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, the storyline is Distinct. I looked. Distinct hasn't won a tournament prior to SAC. Hadn't won a tournament since like um 3 days from now last year, and Distinct, they are grinders. They play like every year weekly. Like they are in tournaments literally all the time. I'm like, you could talk about like I think them actually winning something is pretty bad, but like bam, instant storyline, and it's like I would rather okay, maybe I'm being preachy, but
But
uh that's like I feel like that's why you watch the tournament and not for the like the transitions or the I mean stats are great. I think sometimes stats as like a virtue in themselves are not um are not always good. Like I still don't know what ACS means in Valorant. It's a stat though, and they'll show it to you. Um, so like
It means
they started
average
doing a new
combat
thing.
score.
Oh, well,
They
okay.
average the
Like,
combat score per round, and it's based off of how much damage and your kills in that round.
Oh, why do
okay.
you guys know so much about Valorant? Scares me.
And it's they started yeah, they started doing a thing where they'll divide the money you spent by the damage you did, and like but they have to explain the stat on the stream because it isn't intuitive as to what the stat means. I'm like, I feel like we don't even need to be doing this. but
so so
but
I do want to chime in real quick. Sorry, Fern, if I cut you off there.
no, you're
Unless you
good.
have more to add. Unless you have more to add.
I was closing up. If you're fine.
Okay, cool. Cool. I jumped in the right time. No, because one org that does stats, you know who I'm referring to, CCA. I feel like stats need additional context for what anybody wants to know. And one of the things I wanted to do in the previously when I was doing the IPL Sundays for them was we want to weaponize stats because CCA actually does a really good job tracking stats. And one of the things I think they had was like what weapon compositions, but also more importantly, like win rates on specific modes, which could help paint a picture that the viewers would need. And I think stats in general are awesome as long as the context makes sense for whom
Yeah.
they could potentially be up against. And I think that's always going to be a struggle, no matter how you view it. And it's going to be even harder when you don't have as much coverage.
Yeah. I think to some extent there's only like a few numbers that are really relevant for like any given player. Like when we were doing stats for the Seniki finale, or like when I was starting to do it, I was looking at Zenith and I'm like, I really only care about points at specials per game because I knew it was going to be really high because Zenith is the goat.
Mhm.
But that's and like for like Biscuit or um for like Biscuit or Gar or someone else, you probably don't care about like how many specials or paint they're putting up per game. You care about how many kills they're putting up per game because it like paints a picture of how good they are at the thing they're supposed to be doing. And like I think stats then are like super cool for teams to have, and like, or for tournaments to have, and like we should try to have those. It takes a lot of effort, but like we should still try to have those. And like CCA is kind of insane at that from like the little I've seen of CCA streams. So good job, y'all.
You should watch more. There's totally no bias coming from me. No, but
Yeah.
no, they supplied like oh god, it was win percentages for modes. That was the one I've always used when I worked with Zach back in the qualifiers way back when. We both used mode wins to our advantage because it was it was probably the easiest way to paint. Okay, they in paper should have an advantage if they advantage with this particular mode, especially based on the qualifiers. But the question is, will they execute? And I know with positions they have it's ultimately going to depend on it's specials. Are they good at getting KDRs? I think I saw, which was kill death ratio, from what the abbreviation was for what I saw from the head to heads. But it ultimately really does come down to is the context matters overall for that. But I feel like they SAC honestly did a great job in innovating as much as they could. If anything, that this was a good trial for them to just try it out for something like SAC, even if it came at the cost of every player that participated in it. It felt like, but I think it's really a step up for people who are paying attention and realize, oh, the production value is insanely high.
Yeah, I want to kind of bring this back a little
Sure.
bit more about the telling of storylines, because like, again, going back to Hammy's episode of Critical Inking, I made a post on both Blue Sky and Squidboards about my opinions and what I kind of took out of that, where in low level, especially with low ink, they've done with IPL, they've done a good job at creating the low ink pre-show and inviting players from teams up onto the stage to ask a few questions. And then most of the time, one of those questions ends up being, who do you want to go against? Or who is your biggest rival? And we don't really have much of that, especially outside of the lower level. So we can't really build storylines on anticipation for players and teams, and especially without much script writing either. Yes, we could say tournaments are scripted, sure, whatever, but for the casters need some sort of a script to go off on. What history does a team have? This goes back to the statistics, like you said, on having all of those map mode win rates there. So we can make a story out of counter picks. What mode would the losing team want to counterpick, knowing the win rates of each team? And again, back to storylines. Like I noticed for CCA, for example, three of the most notable with Purdue, UCSD, and Penn State. Purdue and UCSD both winning a league and being the founders of CCA, with Penn State being a 2-time champion in league as well. So you can create those long-term storylines, but you still have those smaller ones a little further back, with WPI having the most titles in league history across all divisions. Illinois State Red Embers ended up going 2-3 in the regular season, but still ended up 3rd overall in playoffs. So you're missing those tiny storylines that we can't really write without much help.
And SEC would have been SEC real quickly had the qualifiers to work off of for those who wanted to get the season 10 picture, but you also had to make sure the people who are staffing, or the commentators like Hammy, were on the ball with that. That's always gonna be an eternal struggle if you don't have the stats, which is fine. You can still base it off of qualifier results and see how teams played in it, because Sendu has a wealth of information about matchups and everything else on top of it. So I feel like that's why I say leagues are easier to cast if you want those storylines. And even circuit formats like SACs even also works just as well because you have it spread out across an entire season.
But we're
Yeah,
still
that's
missing that
that's a pretty good
scripting,
point to
though.
make about leagues, especially.
Mhm.
Yeah, that would you need a script? Okay, so we do need script writers to make sure we got SAC and make sure we have like some Div 9 team automatically just like show up to a qualifier and beat everyone by using quad arrow spray. But no, back to what I'm talking about. To y'all's point, that league thing is a good thing to mention because I know from my experience doing it's funny because I'm about to talk about something completely unrelated to Splatoon, but when it comes to doing stuff for Nebraska sports, especially Nebraska basketball, I was asked to broadcast a game for us versus North Florida in men's basketball, and like just based off of that game alone, there's not really much to talk about. But you do need to find things that already happen in even in non-conference play because before that North Florida game, we had gone almost undefeated. We lost to St. Mary's. We beat Creighton, which was ranked at the time. We were all like, oh crap, hold on, we beat Creighton, and that was all we talked about for a good week. But you have to find those things that have already happened, and that's the good thing about a league is that you already have storylines heading up to it. With SAC, you still kind of had it. I mean, obviously the qualifiers all happened. I could have talked about how, I forgot the last part of it, named Operation Zero, I think, played in one qualifier, won. We haven't seen much of them since, or I could talk about like Yellow Jackets. We could talk about the Italian sounding names that I already forgot. I'm doing great, y'all, but like there's a lot to talk about. There's not as much you could have talked about there, but at the same time, we do like us as commentators, we do have to do some due diligence in getting those stories out whenever we can. Obviously, it's easier with leagues. I could talk to you about the CCA league all day. Heck, I could talk to you about the Div 8 champions having to like skip some of their games because of rescheduling issues, and then they still ended up winning the division. I'm like, yeah, there's your storyline for you. Div 8 has something that you would have never expected, but like we still have like even though there are some places where we don't have that stories, we do have to do our due diligence, find the research, and make those or bring those stories to life during the sets.
What
I'm
one?
like
Go ahead.
just a quick side note. Like I remember the Ludi season where I think it was either Michelin Heroes or Cherry Lemonade went to game 9 in like literally every single set of groups, and I remember nothing about what the streams were like for that Ludi season. So
Real quickly, I do want to touch on one thing. The developing story that only did happen in SAC that Fusion and I went home about, and this actually is directly related to SAC and not a production. It's the fact that all 4 qualifier teams that auto qualified found themselves in the elimination end really early in the tournament with Passione, excuse me, getting eliminated in loser semis too. So it's teams that are all auto qualified found themselves early in elimination, but even then, you can't really predict that kind of story until the tournament actually happens too. Like, yeah, if you look at the bracket, like on paper, you look at the seeds, yeah, those are actual upsets and are big surprises throughout SAC. But again, that's a story that was basically developing as we spoke. So if commentators were on the ball, we would get the bigger picture. As that zoom out's not gonna be able to tell the. I know what you're trying to do there, CKK, but yeah, no, I got you. It was but yeah, no, that was the big thing that was developing within SAC during that tournament was all the qualifying teams would find themselves eliminated early. But we had to be right on top of it. 9 actually was giving us cues that the top 4 teams are in losers brackets. Like, wait, what? And it turned out, and then I looked at it, I was like, oh wow, you're right, actually.
Yeah. They all lost their round 1 matchup, which is technically round 2, but still their own round 1 matchup. And they're all gone in losers and facing each other at that point.
yeah, it literally is Masters Toronto. Like that's same thing happened. But yeah, that is kind of a crazy storyline. I mean tournament momentum is real, but fire losers bracket, I guess. That's the
But
BFSC. I gotta shout out BFSC for the crazy run, but
my goats. But yeah, but yeah, no. Again, you would the only reason why any commentary would be prepared for is that when it happens in real time. That's super hard to get people invested in unless we literally blast breaking news in the middle of our stream, like in the middle of my Dapples block. I would have said, "Yo, by the way, all 14, the top 4 teams, by the way, are in the losers rank. We got one of them for y'all, which we actually did at the time too. So
Yeah.
I feel I kind of feel like my conclusion to this is it's honestly a good trial if you wanted to try out something cool with production, and it's at least something that that people are learning. People, I think all the player feedback, which whether it was awesome, were actually really good feedback. Not like the some of the M21 vacation here. It was more the tournament ran long. We don't know if you needed to do 4 streams, but they did commend that the production went as far as they did, for the tournament as a whole. So I feel like overall it was a success. Obviously, I think my read overall, to put a capping point on this, is that the tournament and production itself was definitely a success. And it can definitely be improved upon the more when you try it out. I think that's the big thing we need to take away from it.
Definitely.
Yep, and that's why we got to keep improving if you want to keep improving on the production side. One other event, by the way, that did happen while we still got time. Okay, I need to ask you guys a quick question. Have you guys heard of a thing called Champions Cup? Have you ever
Yes,
saw it in socials at all?
I did hear of it because I opened Twitch and people were playing in it, but that is the only way I've discovered its existence.
I heard of it because
I saw
I
it.
tried TZS to play in it.
You tried to get TZS to play in Champions Cup?
I mean, we didn't do
Not
well.
easy has to play in a tournament.
That's what I'm saying. We didn't do well at all. Sure, we probably had our weakest roster that we could have run, especially with all of us not really playing the game much in recent time. So sure, we got upset. We got absolutely destroyed, but we ended up there. We ended up playing.
I mean, even if you got destroyed, at least you played the video
Oh,
game
yeah.
at that point. That was the big thing. So why are we bringing up Champions Cup? The teams that participated, TCS, by the way, is one team, but then we saw teams like Vanguard. I'm not gonna say the emoji. You cannot make me on that. You cannot make me on that. You had number one back, I guess, which had Obito, by the way. What? How do you pronounce his name? Yaddle Toddle? Is that correct? How I
not
pronounce that?
Let's go with
Blanks
it.
was even here. Like, Stars
New
Impact
Meta-
literally off of SAC. New Meta too, right?
New Meta
and then
were
you also had the
Storm
team-
and Home and Lucas unretired for one tournament to get 4th for somehow.
like what this tournament just suddenly popped up on our radars. I'm like, whoa, there's a bunch of like well-known teams here. Stars Impact, by the way, also from SAC finale, just showed up and played in this tournament.
Yeah.
I feel like you need to know more about this when I saw it. Looks like 19 teams was the official count.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think some highlights: Vanguard continuing their fraud arc. They did not win, but they only lost to this pickup, which is emojis, and it's basically just vacation plus like 2 other people. Veteran players on Obito's team actually losing is interesting. But also only to the Vanguard and Silver pickup. And also new meta. And Storm, I have no idea what Storm is playing. Hopefully Ballpoint. Prayer. But like that, how new meta came to play in that tournament is beyond me, because like 2.5 people on this team are so retired. Like,
Yeah.
That's a big surprise, honestly.
Home. Oh, actually, Home has played a few tournaments this year. Ignore me.
Well-
Lucas is like. Wait, actually, okay, maybe they have been playing, but like, not together. So, the team is retired. The players are apparently not retired. I was mistaken, but still, very wacky. It is like almost fake. Like I have no idea how this tournament occurred and went out this way.
what I've noticed, by the way, from the participants was a majority were EU teams. From what I've noticed, there minus
Mhm.
TZS. TZS is definitely not from EU to my
It was
knowledge.
It was a
We have more
TCS.
Japan representation than EU, so
I'll tell you
Yano
all I
Taro-
know about TCS.
Yeah, Yano Taro, by the way, was Mexican and was a primarily Mexican team, along with
Mhm.
one member from Peru. So it's like, but it was a majority EU from what I've
Yeah,
noticed.
that team single-handedly like got Mexico to be like the third most populous country at the Syndicate Major. No, but I think it's kind of crazy how like the fact this tournament was so stacked, and still the most notable thing about it is that literally no one knew it was happening. It's like the Esports World Cup. It's like when Esports World Cup was called Gamers 8, it's like the Gamers 8 of Splatoon. I don't know if any of you know what I'm talking about, but it is very strange. Like maybe I just wasn't like in places uh where it was being like shown off. I don't really think it was being shown off, but like it is it was a I had completely no idea that this tournament was happening, or even any like a new tournament or anything money prize was happening. So very strange.
yeah.
Sean, we
It's
lost you.
actually rip.
Oh,
But
well,
it's actually like wild that a lot of things just end up going the way it does, and with many events previously happening, we have some more upcoming, and especially looking at this weekend, we have a few locals going on. I myself will be at Booyah Bay. You have Squidwalkie as well for your Midwest area in the general Milwaukee area. So there's definitely a lot of things to look up to. I am pretty sure these are the first local lands that are going to be happening. The Squidwalkie in Milwaukee, Booyah Bay in San Jose, California. So, uh, many good events. Lowink is happening soon. I don't know when. Is that this weekend as well?
This weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always on like
Low
the
Ink.
20th.
Low Ink is this weekend. I haven't really been paying much attention to that. But 4v4 Sundays is on its return once again. Sendu announced
Yeah.
the new season startup that started up earlier this week, along with other in the zone tournaments to look out for.
And we're
Yeah,
also looking forward to the
Cinder is
revival of Keon.
yeah. Senu is the goat for posting that. There was I think he had to like try again because it was supposed to go live over the weekend and then went live on Monday. But that in his own's actually being posted before, and him like broadcasting, because normally they are like in advance, but you have to like look at the actual org to like see when they're gonna be. That's very nice.
Vapor died too. What happened?
I think the
Oh
season.
my.
We're
The thing
chilling.
with
We're chilling.
I've always had a little bit of beef with In the Zone for not being scheduled consistently. But Sendu does schedule the Syndicate Major consistently, so it's fine. And he's announcing them, so basically the same thing. So that is very nice. Sendu knows when to schedule. He's figuring it out. As much as Picnic ran at random times, but it seems like the Syndicate Major being like this season's being more strict has like led to more consistent scheduling, which is very nice.
Yeah, it's nice to just get announcements of events. We talked about it a little bit before, and especially the larger events that we end up seeing, they're the ones that get announced far in advance. Like we see here in the Zone 44 and 45 both announced, none of which is happening in the month of June. And we still have a good week and a half at least until until the months switch over. So that's going to be about like 2 to 3 weeks. I'm not looking at a calendar right now, but somewhere between 2 and 3 weeks before into Zone 44. So teams have time to prepare for that.
Looks like I missed all the Sendu talk while my internet decided to be half awake. But you are right though. But you are right though from picking up with the Sendu season being back up. Now I think we should expect all the teams to really get themselves probably practicing either in tournaments or a lot more Sendoku now. Especially competing for was it the Sendoku season finale in August if I'm not mistaken. On top of it, so I think I think this is going to be a season to look forward to. But obviously, I think we'll get a better pulse for how that on how that will go like a couple weeks beforehand.
Definitely. And there are some other events that are showing up as well with without Productions and announcing that their next event, specialty event in August 9th is going to be Girls Duo Cup. So there's a lot of things to look up for that, and maybe it wasn't fully announced, but I was told to promote it, so it's being promoted. but more information with that will be announced later on down the line.
I feel like Girls Duo Cup, for the record, if I'm not mistaken, that's like almost an annual Dapples production event. So it's good to see that. So go ahead.
I don't think it's annual, but it is kind of like it's not super common.
Yeah,
Because
it's definitely more of a specialty.
Then Q's won it 6 years, and I don't think that's the case.
basically, I refer to it as every once in a while.
Every once in a
Yeah,
while.
no, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, but like it is on their Sendu page, Girls Duo Cup on August 9th. So it is a thing. It is public in some way.
Well, it's public now.
Yeah, it is public now.
Definitely. While I'm also trying to get myself back into it. Yeah, Fernie, I think you had some thoughts that you wanted to chime in real quickly out, or
I have a few things, mostly just so the winningest players for Girls Duo Cup, who are behind .q, the other 3 winningest players are not really active anymore. I think it's Muty, Taco, and Leafy. So without them coming back, I think it is quite an open tournament. The last team was an Enamel Jess pickup, and some very good like EU top players or high level players that I can imagine winning again. I think like Dark Horse because they're friends, but like I think most of the people on Deja Vu are eligible for Girls Duo Cup, and like that's kind of a sleeper pick. I'll probably talk about it. You should probably bring me on once we know who signed up, so I can talk about it. But that's definitely going to be an interesting tournament because I don't think it's really happened in a while. So
it's been a little over 6 months.
Last time it happened was in mid-January.
Got it.
So
About a few days.
about a few months.
Duly noted. All right. Real quickly, while I'm trying to get my brain back on track here. So I think we got lowering the 4v4 Sundays. I think you guys already covered that when my internet decided to be on break for a quick bit. Last thoughts here, because we're about to be approaching the hour here, is do you think these events will expose anything about the meta, or is it too early to tell? Especially, I know Lowing's happening this upcoming weekend, but is there anything that we should be expecting out of those tournaments for the meta?
I mean, with
I would
Lowing,
think so. Low ink probably not. It kind of seems like
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's definitely still developing right now. It feels like Fuzzy is posting something completely different every time he tweets about the new what is happening in scrims. So,
Mhm.
I guess we'll just have to see. But like I mean, they're gonna show something about how the new weapons are being integrated for sure.
Yeah,
I
but strategy's still getting figured out. I don't think it'll be figured out until right around when In the Zone happens. I think that is probably going to be one of the biggest events to look out for the Western meta upcoming.
I think my read on all this I think my read on all this goes like this. So because like my concept of time is already messed up right away. The patch I think dropped last week, if I'm not mistaken, or 2 weeks ago. Generally you see the meta develop, especially with a big patch like this. The meta is gonna rapidly evolve, rapidly change. I know with previous patches we have like one or two new weapons or a few tweaks to the weapons, but those are usually quickly picked up, and then you might have to just fine tune your options because you give the players so many different options for the third kits, and then try to figure out, okay, does this weapon work well with the other? Will there be a world where the third kit tent or the third kit tri slosher, for crying out loud, fit well into the picture? And I feel like, honestly, I think you're only gonna figure out the meta probably either by the second In the Zone or probably close to the season finale in Sendokyo, where we'll get a better shape of it, because everything's just gonna evolve. Maybe we are not gonna be sold on the mini anymore within a month down the road when somebody figures out counters for it. So I think my read is nothing. Any tournament that happening this weekend should not define anything about the meta. Still too many weapons. People are still gonna be experimenting for probably the next 2 months. I'd say wait until Sendokyo season finale. Not even Super Jump next week will expose anything.
I do think Super Jump will help expose some things, help expose more strategy than anything. But I don't think it will be like complete meta changing in any way. Many people are probably going to just stick with what they know, and if they've been practicing a weapon, they might just pull it out and drop it when it gets to a like a set game or a game set match moment. So it's like I do expect to see something show up. I do expect in Super Jump. I do expect to see the Rapid Pro. I expect to see some Splattershot Pro pull out. I did see a message from Nolan somewhere being like, "Hey, this new Pro is actually kind of interesting, and I might turn to it for a little bit at least."
Oh,
I-
Shadow is also posting about the new mini, so
Yeah.
like comps are gonna change.
I wouldn't be surprised if, especially from our Area Cup discussion earlier today, if Mini Pro, what is it, the Splattershot Pro specifically, well, actually, I guess both pros in that regard. I guess it doesn't matter which one I said in that situation, will probably end up becoming mainstays for the meta. But I think you have a good. I think that's also a fine read, Vapor. I think around that Super Jump 5 time next week is people will probably be as practiced as they could be with the third kids if they want to continue experimenting with it, and then they might be dishing it out for prime time. I think you'll get a solid what is probably the weapon flavor of the month by August. I'm still gonna hold to that, but I feel like you'll start to see the strategy. As you mentioned, I think the strategy will start to show by then.
Yep.
Not sure, Neo, if there's anything you want to quickly chime in with that before we wrap things up.
I mean, I feel like we've covered most of what we were talking about. Like, I think in these recent tournaments, especially low ink, what you're gonna find out in low ink is to that point about like every competitive level area being its own bubble. You're gonna figure out what low level does with these new weapons and why I keep moving around with this chair. That's a different question. But at low level, you're gonna find out like what kind of new weapons do they experiment with. You may not be seeing the same 3 weapons of like Pro, Rapid, and Mini. You might see more of like the new Dreadringer, the new Hydra, the new Tri-Stringer, if anything. But when it comes to other new events coming in, like 4v4 Sundays, In the Zone, the new Sendo season, I like to look at the new Sendo season and see if we can catch any streams that are happening as time progresses, because I want to see how these metas develop. Because like we mentioned earlier, In the Zone is probably going to be the best place to look for. Maybe for Super Jump, definitely going to be a place where I'd watch and see like what are these top teams doing, especially around day 2. What because day 2 always going to be the part where everyone brings out the best. What is the best in terms of what we see there? But Sendo, Q, whatever matches you can catch with the top teams, I want to take a look at and see, like, all right, what are we developing here? Like, what's being developed, basically?
You actually have raised up an interesting point. I know Loic is actually a really good tournament to actually bring up because people will still be Dreadringer choosers to the very end. We can blame someone for that one. But I
Yeah,
feel
we
like
can
Nito, my
profile.
my hot take coming in for Loic is there will probably be third kits not named Mini, Splatshot Pro, or Rapid Blaster Pro Deco. Actually, this probably may be a very cold take, but still,
Oh yeah.
I think expect to see some low level teams probably dish out. Honestly, my probably the Glamour Splattershot probably be the more
Mhm.
common choice out of
Mhm.
the bunch. I think you're gonna
I
start
think
to
it's
see
underrated.
weapons. I think you're gonna see what I think low ink. You probably should tune into low ink anyway, just to see how low level teams want to approach, because I think low level teams also I think from a certain meta months ago, if anybody remembers Kraken cheese, or what I like to aptly call the Kraken jumps, low level was all over the Kraken jumps right away. It took top
Mhm.
level, I think, months to adopt and realize, oh god, this actually is a really broken strategy. So I think low level, it's not gonna change. It's not gonna be meta defining, but I think it's gonna open a handful of doors for what other teams want to try. I was like, actually, this player might be onto something.
Especially if we want to get back to the topic of Rainmaker having that
Yeah.
glamour shot. It with that Kraken, with that burst bomb. Many shot players like having a burst bomb with it, and then Kraken to just stall out on Rainmaker.
I will say this. I will say this much. I expect my take here from Lowing. I'm gonna be Pop Gun's probably gonna prove me wrong here. I expect Glamour Splattershot and probably a variant of the Charger or the Scope to make a grand
Yeah.
appearance. I think those are the two probably more likely weapons to show up. If they dish out the Mini or the Pros, I mean, all the credit to them. They've been going around, but I think those two type weapons I think will probably be making headlines in low ink this weekend. But that's my read. I hope I'm wrong. We are already at 2 hours there, so we got
Yeah.
a good we had a great discussion overall with stuff there.
Yeah,
If you guys wanted to hear the Rainmaker discussion from earlier, tune into the 30 or 40 minute mark and discuss why we kept talking about Rainmaker for minutes. We're gonna close things out here. I'll go in order. Let's start with you, Fern. Where can the people find you?
Blue Sky at Remix Fern or Fern_Nautilus, and YouTube at Remix Fern_Nautilus. So, hey.
Nito, where can the people find you?
Blue Sky
If
at
Nito-
Nito and use .bsky.social. Twitch at Nito and use. In the rare occasions I do stream. And honestly, I don't know where to find me. Just please deliver a Stradiol to my house. Thanks.
Trans rights. Vapor, where can the people find you before I close this out?
Well, if anyone wants to find me, though, make sure you do it by carrier pigeon. But you can find me over at the Guild House this Saturday for Booyah Bay. You can also find me basically anywhere on social media at V4P0RSBL. Keon, back to you. Take it home.
You bet. You guys can find me Killing2570. You guys can probably find me racing in 7 knockout tours in Mario Kart World for the most part, and also playing Chrono Trigger whenever I can. That's that. By the way, huge shout outs to our producer CKK producing this podcast for the rest of us. Huge shout out to you, and of course, shout outs to Pink Puffy Pastry earlier being our area cup correspondent and wanted to talk about Rainmaker opinions with the three of us here before Vapor hopped in. But that's gonna do it here for this episode of Splat Chat. Tune in next week. Most likely, I think the topic that everybody's gonna be intrigued about: Super Jump 5, the next major that will help determine our Splat World Series. The qualifiers as a whole. The current pressure cooker for that is 18 teams. Hopefully we get to see more, but more importantly, we got to see how it all plays out by then. Until then, folks, this has been Splat Chat broadcasted on Broadcasting Esports Every Play or Broadcast Beep. We'll see you guys next time for the next edition of Splat Chat. Until then, enjoy the rest of your week and your upcoming weekend.